Now I will proceed to the formation of resting potential. Okay, so what is it mean? So it is meaning that the neuron is resting state that does not sending any electrical signal to you guys, within the neuron, meaning that that neuron is at resting state. No electrical impulse will be passed through. So if you still remember about the structure of neuron, you this as example. You still remember the structure of neuron. Electrical impulse will be transmitted from one place to one end, from the beginning to the end, and then you can imagine that the neuron tissue is like the wire. You know that wire, right? Why we want to wire? Because we need to have electricity, right? So it like a wire between the inside of our body. So normally the electrical impulse will be transmitted from one place to another place, right? So when the electrical impulse is transmitted, this is what we call as action potential. But the electrical impulse will not always be occur inside the neuron one. So when there is no electrical impulse inside the neuron or inside within the axon, then this one we call as resting potential. But when there are the electrical impulse within the one part of the axon, you need to know that electrical impulse is not directly pass through, directly have throughout the axon. The electrical impulse is transmitted from one part to another part. So when this part have the electrical impulse, this part will be rest, and when this part have electrical impulse, this part will be rest. So normally when the rest is we call as resting potential, and then got the electrical impulse we call as action potential. Okay, so normally in resting potential, so normally if you have about the electrical impulse, then voltage is the key component. Voltage, or we call as potential difference, that you already learned in physics. So although you are not taking physics or physics, maybe, but in SPM I think you already learned about the definition of the voltage, right? The definition of potential difference. So normally if you still remember that when they are the electrical charge between the two regions, then potential difference or voltage will be formed. So normally membrane potential actually is voltage. Membrane voltage actually is the differences in the concentration between the specific ion inside the cell and those outside the cell. So normally is in the structure of the axon. If you still remember, in the structure of the axon, within the axon is inside the cell, but outside the cell, this white color region is we call as outside the cell, or we call as extracellular fluid region. So this is outside the cell. So the outside the cell and inside the cell, the ion, the charged ion is different. So normally sodium ion and potassium ion are the key ion that play the role in the membrane potential. So these two ions are always maintain the concentration gradient during the resting state. So if you still remember, sodium and potassium pump, right, at they transport what they transport. So the sodium and potassium pump is actually regulate your sodium ion and also potassium ion between the cell during the resting state. So if you still remember that in sodium potassium pump, you know that sodium ion inside the cell will be pumped out outside the cell, right? 3 sodium ion pump out outside the cell, and then 2 potassium ion pump into the cell, and then this process is require ATP, one type of ATP transport. So why? So if you see that, meaning that outside the cell, sodium ion is high concentration, but inside the cell, potassium ion is high concentration. Okay, so you see this potassium calcium concentration normally inside the cell is high, but sodium ion is high outside the cell. This is normal situation. At equilibrium situation, sodium ion outside is high, and inside the cell potassium ion is high. So this asymmetric distribution of ion across the plasma membrane in the vase is both about the action of selective ion channel and also ion pump. Okay, so not only sodium potassium pump, actually they are also the what we call as ion channel that specifically for potassium ion and also sodium ion. So you see this diagram, this blue color is sodium potassium pump, and then this more orange color, more dark deep brown color is we call as potassium ion, and then this yellow color is sodium channel ion, sodium ion channel. So you see this diagram, you see that the number of potassium ion channel is high quantity compared to sodium ion channel. Why? Because you need to maintain that all the outside the cells sodium ion is high, inside the cell potassium ion is high. So normally this is the ion channel, so this is not anti-transport process, this is the facilitated diffusion process. So the ion will be moved down the concentration gradient. So normally the sodium ion inside the cell will be passed through out sodium ion outside the cell will be passed into inside the cell, because down the concentration gradient, right? Because it need to maintain the ion, and then the potassium ion inside the cell will be passed through out from the cell. So that is why that your potassium ion channel need to in high amount, because you know that potassium and sodium ion both out there are positively charged, and then in resting potential your inside the cell, inside the axon, within the axon should be negatively charged. Resting potential must be negatively charged. Outside the cell is positively charged, so that the potassium ion need to pass through out. Kena keluar punya. Dia kena keluar. Tak boleh terlalu banyak juga. Kalau terlalu banyak pun akan possibility to create the positivity charge too. So dia kena keluar. And then the sodium ion tak boleh banyak. The sodium ion channel cannot too much. If too much of sodium ion channel, so the ion will be flushed into the cell. So yeah, it will become positivity charge. Cannot. So normally ion can be fused rapidly through ion channel, causing a net movement or charge generate membrane potential. So normally ion channel will convert chemical energy to electrical energy due to they are selectively permeable. Okay. And then potassium ion channel are always open, causing the potassium ion diffuse out from the cell. And then you already mentioned, yeah, in the potassium ion inside the cell is very high. I already mentioned inside a cell is very high, so that the potassium ion will be outside the cell. Okay, and then only a few sodium ion, and then ion. Okay, and then another thing is that there are also another type of channel we call as voltage gated ion channel. So this is also one type of the ion channel, but this kind of channel can be open and closed or closed. This one is opening channel, totally opening 24 hours. They cannot close one. So meaning that the ion can be freely move through this channel based on the concentration gradient. But for this one, voltage gated ion channel, the ion cannot pass through it when the channel is closed. Only when the ion channel is open, then the ion can pass through. So when the ion channel is open, when your membrane potential is changing, meaning that when the charge are changed very drastically, meaning that significant change between the charge between the outside the cell and inside the cell. When there are the significant change, then this gated channel will be open. And then in the resting state, we will known as this state, the axon is polarized. The axon membrane is polarized because your inside the cell is negatively charged. The most important thing is resting potential inside the cell is negatively charged because no electrical atmosphere. Only outside the cell is positively charged. Okay, so this is all about the resting potential. Okay,